Yo, what is up everybody? Quick intro. Today we are doing the Philadelphia Eagles for the 32 team preview series for the upcoming NFL season. We don't have a lot of time today because the game that I played finished very quickly for this gameplay, so we don't got too much time in the video. So going over to Philadelphia Eagles, they were a good team last year, but not a great team. They were a little bit inconsistent throughout the year. They had some high quality wins for a team that didn't make the playoffs. They beat Atlanta, they beat Pittsburgh very handily. They beat the Giants in the second to last week, I believe it was. So they had good wins, but they lost a lot of one-possession games, and that ultimately did them in and prevented them from making any sort of playoff push. This year, they got most of the guys coming back once again this year, and they actually improved a little bit. So the Eagles, things might be looking good for Philly. They got one of the best offensive lines in the league. In fact, just looking in the trenches, the Eagles are one of the best teams at dominating the trenches. Offensive line's been solid for years, and it's still solid. They signed Brandon Brooks, who ended up being a great deal for them. He's still really good. He was good in Houston. They got Pro Bowlers like Jason Peters, Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson missed a lot of last year with the suspension, so you're hoping he stays healthy. And by the way, this game was really glitchy. You're going to see a couple of times where my user defender teleports, so shout out to Madden for that. But yeah, they got Lane Johnson. They got Jason Kelsey. They bet on Alan Barr being the replacement for Evan Mathis when they let them go a couple of seasons ago, and that worked out. And then on the defensive side in the trenches, you guys know a lot of the names: Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. They lost Connor Barwin, but they're bringing back Jernigan. They got Michael Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, amazing young linebacker. He's definitely set to be, one of those guys that's going to be a dominant middle linebacker for years to come. Nigel Bradham, that was a great signing last year. But when you look at the wide receiver and cornerback positions, that one little area, that battle area, like I said, they got one of the best, spots in the trenches in the NFL, but they have had the worst set of wide receivers / cornerbacks last year. Your wide receivers couldn't catch for jack, whether you're talking about Green Beckham or Nelson Aguilar. We all know about his struggles. Jordan Matthews was okay, but, Jordan Matthews as your number one guy is not necessarily a good look for your passing offense, and because of that, the Eagles, they didn't struggle too badly as an offense, passing the ball. Carson Wentz, I really like Carson Wentz. I think that, he could be a star in the league. I thought he performed pretty solidly for his rookie season, considering what he was put to play with, those wide receiver spots. He didn't have, no time to throw the football or anything like that because he got an offensive line, but, still a pretty impressive rookie performance. And now they added Alshon Jeffrey. It's a one-year deal. He's probably not coming back. This is just a one-year rental. One thing to know about the Philadelphia Eagles, their salary cap situation is absolutely terrible. All right, that's probably why Alshon Jeffrey isn't coming back next season, because they have big problems with their salary cap this upcoming season. They're going to have to find some sort of way to shed some salaries and, move some money around, because they got problems. And Carson Wentz is still on a rookie deal, so they got to figure things out in Philadelphia, and that's why, unfortunately, as solid as this team looks, and it looks like, oh yeah, the future is bright in Philadelphia, this team might fall apart in the next year or two because they won't be able to pay everybody because of how bad their salary cap situation actually is. So you definitely got to watch out for that for the Eagles, and it's kind of scary, but at least for this year, since we're doing this year, you can worry about the salary cap upcoming years. We're not going to talk too much about it because it doesn't impact this season. This season, though, they kept most of their guys. Connor Barwin's gone. I think I mentioned that already, but they got Alshon Jeffrey, and he should definitely improve the passing game. Torrey Smith, he looked pretty unmotivated in San Francisco his last 2 years, but he was solid in Baltimore in his early years of his career. So as long as he does that, that's an okay receiving core. Tight end spot, Zach Ertz. I like Zach Ertz. He's pretty good. And then you got Trey Burton as well. He's not too bad. Brett Selleck is still around. Then the running back position is a little bit of a problem. You definitely like for the Eagles to lean on the running game a little bit, but it's a good collection of running backs that they have. Ryan Matthews, Wendell Smallwood. They signed with Garrett Blunt. I don't know how much Blunt's actually going to bring for them because he's getting up there in age, but as long as he brings something, that would be cool because Ryan Matthews always has injury concerns. Darren Sproles is coming back for his 1100th season. That dude doesn't age like the rest of us. He's still balling out. He still gets return touchdowns and all of that. So that's 4 solid quality NFL running backs. Not great or anything like that, but it would be nice to see the Eagles run the ball better than they did last year and, help out Carson Wentz with the passing offense, because it still might not be too good, but also gonna need Wentz to improve a little bit. He took a couple of unnecessary sacks last year, a couple of unnecessary turnovers. He was a rookie, though, so, you hope he'd improve the next year. That's just what you gotta do. Let him play, let him learn through his mistakes. That's what last year was kind of all about, and hopefully improves in close game situations, because the Eagles definitely need him to come up with some of those clutch drives, make some of those clutch throws, and now that he has some receivers, Eagles could be a sleeper team for the playoffs. We'll see. The problem is their secondary. I mentioned things that they improved, their wide receiving core a little bit. They did not really do anything about that secondary, which is mind-boggling because Jalen Mills, 7th round pick last year, is their starting cornerback, and that's not too good. They got this guy Douglas this year that they're hoping comes in and does something. They got a couple of guys. Derek Barnett that they drafted actually looks really solid, so that might help their pass rush. But the problem is, as great as their pass rush is, they were getting to the quarterback. They were getting really close to the quarterback last year. The Philadelphia Eagles were. You talk about Cox, Brandon Grahams, Barwin, whoever it may be, but when your guys literally cannot cover anyone for like 2 seconds, it doesn't really matter how good of a pass rush you have. You could have 4 Von Millers on the field rushing the quarterback, but you have 4 Jalen Mills. That kind of negates everything. That was the problem with the Eagles last year, and it's probably going to be a problem again this year unless someone steps up to the table. They have one of the better safety tandems in the league. Well, not better. It's okay. McLeod's like a quality starter. He's not anything more than that. I won't give him too much credit for their secondary, but Malcolm Jenkins is one of the better safeties in the NFL. The Eagles have done a really good job building their team through free agency. I mentioned some of the guys that they picked up. Malcolm Jenkins a couple of years, one of those guys, and one of the guys that should help them this year is Timmy Jernigan. They kind of took him from the Ravens, and Jernigan, solid player, should help their run defense that was kind of average last year. So with a defense like that and an improving passing offense, hopefully Carson Wentz can get more touchdown passes on the board, and hopefully you lean towards on the running game. It looks like the Eagles are set to potentially make a playoff push. And when I looked at the roster, I'm like, man, I really think the Eagles could be a sleeper team to make the playoffs list this year. Then I looked at their schedule, and their schedule is hard as balls, man. They play the AFC West, which I mentioned some really tough divisions. This probably is the toughest division for the second year in a row in all of football. They played their own division, the NFC. I say AFC West. I think I might have said NFC West. But they do play the NFC West anyways. And that's, you play against Seattle and Arizona. That's no cakewalk. You play against the NFC East, your own division. That's a tough division. You play against Dallas twice and New York twice. And even playing against Washington twice. Those NFC East games are always weird. So you don't really want to play them, but you got to play them 6 times a year. I think they play Green Bay this year. So it's just... it's not an ideal. They might not, but their schedules, when I looked at it, was really scary, and it kind of threw me away from making them as a sleeper pick. They're probably gonna go more in 8-8, but if Carson Wentz takes the next step this year, that's what they need to make a playoff push. If Carson Wentz takes a giant step next year, then it would not surprise me at all to see the Eagles in the playoffs. They have the talent, at least for this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 10-6 and make the playoffs at all. Maybe not win the NFC East, but as a wild card team, it could definitely get it done. So that's my prediction on the Philadelphia Eagles. As apparently my dude Yahowii lost connection to the game, didn't rage quit. So that's what happened there. I'll take his word for that. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. If he stayed in the game that long, he would not just left randomly. So yeah, leave a like in the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Eagles fans. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what you guys think about this year's team, because there's potential. It's just someone's got to figure out how to cover at the cornerback position. And I'll catch you guys next time.